forgot.
Yeah. Well, let me remind you. I saw Jim Boeheim, Zubin. I saw a moment. I saw a guy walking down the street. He scratched his booty, picked the nose, and the finger went right into the mouth. I'm telling you, Key, I miss New York people watching so much.
This is Jalen Johnson blowback. This is Jalen Johnson blowback from
It just happened. No, look, you can see it online. It's Jim Boeheim has the best ones. It's the deep dig, and then it goes right.
Oh, man, come on, man.
What? It happens. It's city watching. It's people watching in the morning.
Jim Boeheim. Oh, you just made me because I saw the video.
Oh, I remember I sent it to you.
All that. That's
he got deep in there.
Gross. Why did you have to start the morning off like that, dude?
Because it reminded me of how much I loved and I missed the city, the people watching aspect of the city. So you guys get it too much. You guys, it's easy for you guys. It's the norm. It hasn't been the norm for me.
I don't. Have you noticed, Jay, though, and Key, I don't know if you've noticed this. One thing I've noticed living in the city, not only is the energy down, so many storefronts closed. I don't see police anywhere. It doesn't feel like you're living in New York. It doesn't feel like you're living in New York.
I mean... Yeah, I guess. I guess.
The energy.
Yeah. Key's in Brooklyn Heights, though. You know what I mean? Like, they do it differently over there.
Say, man. Shh.
Hey, sir. I'm sorry. Sorry, you're right.
I don't know. The energy is a lot for New York. You need it to really...
The vibrancy.
Yeah, you need it.
The people, the languages, you know what I mean? Everything that makes it so unique.
But you also know where you're at.
Yeah.
And you're in the middle of a pandemic, or hopefully at the end of a pandemic. And so you expect for certain things to be a certain way, I'm sure, right? I mean, what else? 4 months from now, you're going to wish that it was this way, without the pandemic. Then 4 months from now, hopefully you'll be like, oh, I wish we were back in February because all the traffic and the people walking around.
Walking shoulder to shoulder. Now you got the whole sidewalk to yourself.
So funny, though, before we move on. When I left New York to go play in Tampa, and I left Dallas, I came to the Giants, Jay, to visit the Giants. I was the year that first Super Bowl they won with Eli Manning. So I decided to go to Carolina instead. And I was in New York, and one of the decisions to not sign with the Giants is I'm walking down Madison Ave, and I'm walking, Jay. Now, mind you, I haven't been in New York quite some time walking around, but I was in my hotel, and I'm like, oh, let me get out on the street. So I'm walking, and I went with my wife, and I was on the phone with her. I'm walking, and she's like, what's wrong? And I'm like, these people are walking up behind me. And it's just that people was moving so fast, and I stop and turn around and be like, why are you walking up behind me? But they really wasn't. They're just moving fast.
That's their
pace. I was like, I can't. This is too much for me.
No personal space.
No, I'm good.
Zero.
I'm so good. And then I wind up going to Carolina instead.
Where it's a little slower pace down there.
I was like,
to the south. So speaking of energy, the energy I think has all been sucked out of Eagles fans. We talked about it late last week when the deal went down. Think about this for a second. This is one thing that has not been brought up at all. And Key and Jay, you tell me which was more bizarre, the entry of Wentz or the exit of Wentz. Think all the way back to 2016. They draft Carson Wentz. Do you guys remember what happened the weekend before the season started that year? Carson Wentz is ready to go. Sam Bradford at that time is your number one. Chase Daniels your number two. And everybody was saying that essentially, look, Carson Wentz is probably going to be the 3. He may not even be active on some game days. We're just going to take it slow, but this is definitely our guy. What happened the weekend before the season? They traded out of nowhere Sam Bradford to the Minnesota Vikings. Why did that happen? Because Teddy Bridgewater went down in Minnesota with a horrific injury. Mm-hmm. And the weekend before the season, you don't ever see this in the NFL. The weekend before the season started, the Eagles traded their starting quarterback the weekend before it started to the Minnesota Vikings. At that moment, Carson Wentz was geese hunting in New Jersey. Jay, I've never went geese hunting. You grew up in Jersey. I've never been geese hunting.
I didn't know you could go geese hunting in
Southern Jersey, very rural.
Really? That's a thing?
Yeah, down there. So he's geese hunting like he's in North Dakota. He gets the call. You're QB1. We just traded.
Yeah,
Sam Bradford.
What did they get, a 1 for Stafford?
Yeah.
I mean, for Bradford?
Yeah, a couple ones, yeah. So it was a pretty good deal.
That was a bonehead deal,
right.
though.
And Matt, and Sam's out of the league. He's always been injured. But my point there is that's how Wentz became the starter. Odd set of circumstances. Trade the starter. Boom, you're the guy. As Key said, started 3-0, didn't throw a pick till his 4th game. Weird way to get in. Was it weirder the way it all ended?
Well, he got drafted 2 overall, so you assume that he was going to wind up being a starter at some point throughout the course of the season. It was weird the way it ended because I assumed, like many, that once Doug Peterson was fired and they brought in a new head coach, that the reason that they did that was to try to, I don't know, bridge the gap, meet in the middle, something along the lines of Carson Wentz. And then all of a sudden he becomes
Power of Three.
I didn't expect that at all. I don't know if he did early on. When they probably made the initial firing, I don't think that he looked at it and said, he probably looked at it and was like, oh, God, they got rid of this guy. Thank God. And then all of a sudden his name surfaces as a possible trade destination, and it became the Indianapolis Colts, and now he's on the move.
Jay, what's his legacy? He did say over the weekend, thank the fans. We won a Super Bowl, which he was largely responsible for a regular season brilliance in 2017. What's his legacy in Philly now that it's all done?
He's a Super Bowl champion. Will he be remembered as a closer? No, that's Nick Foles, and there's a statue outside their stadium that proves that. But he was the reason why they got the number 1 seed, right? If he doesn't play that well, they're never in that position to begin with. But I think more importantly, he will be a bystander of an organizational failure of monumental proportions.
One thing
That's what I think the legacy is for him.
I would totally agree with you. They don't get there without him. They needed him both to get there, and it's amazing that they brought them both back the following year, and they needed, remember, Foles the following year to get through in the double doink playoff game. One thing that's important to note is, why did they make the move at this particular point? Sal Palantonio has come on the show. He came on last week and said, listen, from the moment the season ended, you knew Wentz was gone. Sal didn't think they were going to be able to get a first-round pick. But remember, once the league year commences on March 17th, they owed Carson Wentz his base salary plus a $10 million roster bonus. So they had to make the move because there was no way they were going to pay him that salary and the $10 million on the 17th. That speeds up the deadline. But our Tim McManus, who spends every single day reporting on the Eagles, said inside the organization, what they got, well, a little underwhelming.
Not thrilled. They recognize that the return they got versus what they invested in this quarterback does not match up. But the reality is that they were selling at a low point. Carson Wentz was coming off the worst year of his career, one of the worst years of any quarterback in the NFL last year. He's due to make $47 million over the next 2 seasons, and he's got some questions about coachability that he needs to answer.
I understand what people keep saying they didn't get the value for Carson Wentz. Essentially, they got a first-round pick. When you get a 3 and a 2, that's a 1 in the bottom of the first round. That's all that is.
And the 2 could become a 1 easily.
And the 2 could become 1, which most likely it will based on the percentage of playing time and them making it to the playoffs, which everyone is saying or believe that the Indianapolis Colts have put themselves in the driver's seat within that division, grabbing Carson Wentz. So I don't see where, I looked at it and I said to myself, I think if they really would have, they probably could have got more. If they really they probably could have got more for him.
Yeah, they were up against the clock, and the lack of suitors was also pretty glaring. Remember, the Bears did not make an official offer. Last thing I would say, April 24th, 2020, the day they drafted Jalen Hurts, it's been reported Howie Roseman called Carson Wentz on the 24th and said, if he's available, we're going to draft him. He's no threat to you. We want the strongest quarterback room in the NFL. It's in the eye of the beholder. If Wentz had played well and Hurts was there, whether that would have been the case, Key. But that's what he told them. We want the strongest quarterback room in the NFL. Now, they have the most barren quarterback room in the NFL. We'll wait to see what happens. On the way, more quarterback talk, although these guys aren't in the league just yet. As Key said, it's time to poke holes in Trevor Lawrence. The latest guy to do it, not literally, figuratively, a 2-time NFL head coach that isn't saying it's Zach Wilson over Lawrence. He's saying it's Wilson and Mac Jones over Trevor Lawrence. What's this all? Both of them. What? He's got Lawrence at QB3. What? That's next when us three, Keyshawn, J. Will, and Zubin, return on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
This year it's like, no, it's Trevor Lawrence and then everybody else. Mac Jones is really the